Welcome to Lakeland Community College. My name is Mary Urbis. I'm the Gallery Director and Exhibition Curator here at Lakeland. I want to welcome you to the Big Ass Art Show here at Lakeland, and I am the Big Ass mastermind behind this whole concept. This idea to show extra large, oversized works of art came to fruition a few years ago. It started as a gallery committee meeting at the Valley Arts Center with myself and John Sargent and Dan Simone, who was the gallery director at the time. We thought it would be a great idea to offer collections of large overscale art through multiple cities and multiple counties, and it became a reality. John was the head of the gallery committee at Artists Archives down by University Circle. He said they would probably be involved, and then we enlisted the help and the collaboration of Bay Arts and Bay Village. So I do want to take a quick moment to thank the participating venues in this Big Ass Art Show extravaganza. It's the Artists Archives, which is located in University Circle, the Valley Arts Center in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, and then Bay Arts in Bay Village, Ohio. And the idea is that you travel from the different exhibitions and pick up an passport at one of the locations, have it stamped when you go to the other three, and then when you submit the passport, then you are entered to win some art that was generously donated by the Artists Archives of the Western Reserve. So to start the exhibition, I wanted to show you a piece that's part of the Lakeland's permanent collection, and I wasn't even thinking about it when I was curating the show. It is a ceramic tile piece that was created by George Samoji, who taught clay here at Lakeland, and this piece it's called Aerial View, Desert Landscape and Aerial View, and it says that it was installed in 1978. So, and this piece greets you when you come into the lobby of the D building, and the lobby to the theater and the box office, and it's adjacent to the gallery. And it is an oversized clay tile piece that I'm just so glad that this is what greets you when you come to this Big Ass Art Show. I'm going to start the tour of the Big Ass Art Show with a piece by Judith Brandon that's entitled Cosmic Blossoms. It's mixed media on paper. And this show kind of turned out to be a mini CIA, Cleveland Institute of Art alumni show, because I'm an alumni of the Art Institute, as is Judy, and three of the artists that are in this space, this first open area, are from the Art Institute. Judy's pieces are very atmospheric, and I was just so grateful that she would give me a piece for this show, because again, it's hard to display these large scale pieces. And the whole idea behind curating this exhibition was to give the artists a venue to show their work, because a lot of galleries don't have the space to show extra large, big ass pieces of work. And the Lakeland Gallery is the largest exhibition space in the Lake Geauga and Ashtabula County area. So I was just so glad to be able to produce an exhibition like this, and to me, this really makes the gallery look like a New York gallery, and it gives and there's respectful and ample space next to all of the pieces, so you can become engaged in them, and you don't have another piece kind of invading your peripheral vision, where you can actually take the time and investigate and look at the nuances of the different pieces. And again, she uses watercolors, and she uses pencils, and she's got imagery that is kind of built in that you don't always see, and they don't always that's recorded in a video. And I always say that it's always best to come see the artwork in person, so that you can feel the energies that the artworks emote. Okay, this multi-panel installation piece was created by Joe Stavik. Joe actually graduated with me from the Cleveland Institute of Art, and this is oil on panel, and it's called The Village. And I just love the surrealism, the abstract conceptualism of some of these pieces, and this is a project that he has been working on. He's been creating these panels over the years, and a few of them have been shown in some of the exhibitions that I have curated in the past. Some of them have been included in the May show, Juried Art Show. So to give Joe the opportunity to show his village as a collection was important for him as an artist, and I was so happy that as a curator that I could give him the opportunity to show his work to the community and to our guests that come visit. Okay, this sculpture is one of only 2 sculptures that I curated into the exhibition. This was created by Conneaut, Kent area artist Ken Hetzel. It is entitled Remains of a Dream, and it's carved in charred wood. And it works really well with the next piece, which you'll see of George Koseman, which is the monument and the big massive pieces. And the crazy part about this piece is that it's got this massive look to it, but because it's driftwood, it's really not that heavy. So it's one of those pieces that has such a monumental appearance to it, but the logistics of it's pretty lightweight and all that. And Ken has been a regular exhibitor in this exhibition, and I knew him to do large-scale pieces, and the artist that I selected for this show I knew created large-scale pieces. Some artists created work specifically for the show, and some artists are showing pieces that they've never had the opportunity to show before because they never had the appropriate venue that would be able to house this group, be able to house an extra large piece. And it's an interesting piece because of the organic shapes and the charring and the engraving in the surface. And so I was just glad to have a piece of sculpture that could be manageable and could be brought into the gallery space, because as difficult it is for artists to find a space to show extra large work, the logistics of getting things through doors here at Lakeland has become very challenging, and that's what I learned with this show, exactly the size of the doors and what pieces could actually fit through. This next extra large piece was created by George Koseman. George is also a Cleveland Institute of Art graduate. This is Monument 9, and it's acrylic on canvas. And this is one of the few pieces in the show that is not presented in the format that I usually present work, because it was so large, and the logistics of framing something like that and the warpage. We just decided that it was a rolled up piece and that we would install it and kind of tack it up into the wall. But again, it's a beautiful piece. It has a commanding presence in the gallery and in the flow of the design of the installation, because as those of you who are familiar with what I do here is I create a visual storyline, and each piece is placed next to the piece before it and after it in a very specific order, because sometimes it's a visual connection or a thematic connection, and it's just a beautiful rendition. And again, this is one of those pieces that has so many subtleties in it that you really do need to come and see the work in person so that you can see the nuances in this piece. Okay, this next painting was created by Gerald Vandeveer. Jerry was actually my first painting instructor at the Cleveland Institute of Art. It was a Monday class, so he was the very first professor that I ever met when I started way back decades ago in the summer of 1975. This piece is entitled Imminent, and it's powdered pigment and acrylic on canvas, and it was an honor for me to invite him to show in the exhibition, and I was just so pleased when he agreed to do that. And he's a humble man, and the fact that we have stayed friends for all these years has been kind of fun. I run into him and his wife Marla at different art shows at Kane Park, all the different things. things, and when I invited him to be part of the show, it was fun because because he works large scale, instead of just having I had a multitude of pieces that I could choose to be in the exhibition, and I chose this one partially because of the imagery, the subject matter, and just his aesthetic and the materials that he used. And like I said, he was an influence on me. He taught me how to watercolor paint, and he taught me how to acrylic paint. It's like you took his class and you learned how to paint paper bags with watercolors, and once you can overcome that challenge, I think you could do almost anything. Okay, the next piece, so this little room is kind of a little bit more abstract pieces. So this next piece was created by Patty Flauto, and it's called The Mystery of Being, and it's acrylic on canvas. And for those of you guys who have been coming to my shows and seeing the videos, you notice that I don't always have a lot of abstract works in the show. I seem to be drawn to, pun intended, pieces that are very figurative and narrative. But Patty is one of the premier abstract artists in the area, and I contacted her because she'd been showing smaller pieces in my shows and in the juried shows, and I said, no, I want you to do a big ass piece for this show. So I'm so happy that she rose to the occasion and accepted my challenge. Okay, this diptych was created by Gary DeVoke. This is entitled Levels of Conscientiousness 148. It's mixed media on canvas. Now Gary is actually better well known in this area as a clay artist. He used to have run and operate California Ceramics. He offered clay classes and mold making and all that. And so it was kind of fun when I approached him about this idea, because in the beginning he was going to do a large scale ceramic piece, possibly in tiles, and then he said no, that he'd like to do a painting. So what's interesting is that the color combinations he's using with the black, red, yellow, white, and gray, and the stripes, those are the kind of surface decoration that he puts on his ceramic pieces. So it was fun to challenge Gary to work outside of a box he hadn't worked in metaphorically in quite a bit of time. So I was glad that I could include his work also in this exhibition. And Gary and I, probably my very second two-person show at Pentagon Gallery in Cleveland Heights was with Gary. So he and I have been friends and have stayed friends for decades. We met as strangers and artists, and we come away as friends, and that's what I do with a lot of my artists. Once I meet you and get to know your art, we usually become friends, and everyone just becomes a part of the greater art community in this area. Okay, this kind of crazy fun piece was created by an artist named Emily Weiser. This is called Buy Nothing Necklace, and it's found object assemblage. And this was, I found this piece as a serendipitous moment scrolling through Facebook a few months ago. I'm not even sure how it came up, and I looked at this piece, and it's the biggest necklace I've ever seen, and it's created by Pieces Parts. And she had met this group called Buy Nothing, and so she enlisted the assistance of some of these new people that she met when she came to Cleveland. And I just thought it was kind of a fun thing with all and when you look at all the different Pieces Parts, there's some beautiful vintage pieces of jewelry. There's a lot of very good paste work. There's just some of the classic pieces that they included, and I just thought it was just a fun piece to include in a show like this, because I don't think anybody would ever have a concept of what a big ass piece of jewelry would look like. So this is a big ass necklace. Okay, this next color field painting was created by Dennis Long. Dennis is also a graduate of the Cleveland Institute of Art. This is entitled Access to Passion, and this is acrylic on canvas. And again, I have known Dennis for decades. He has exhibited in previous May shows, and with a piece like this, I know that he has issues trying to find places that will exhibit a piece like this that is so large scale, and how it's constructed, and the weight of the piece itself. And I'm hoping that it does show up on the monitors, because it is electric, and the sidebars with that, you know, the yellow orange and that electric lime green, it just kind of bounces, and you know, it makes me happy, and it kind of makes me feel like my eyes are working, and I could see this brilliant, you know, the brilliant colors that he has assembled into this. And then it's kind of hard to tell unless you're standing right in front of it, but the gradation of the big orange field, where it goes to, where it's a little bit more redder on the bottom left corner, and as you go up to the top, because there's a little bit more, there's a subtle change in the color, where there's a little bit more, you know, red orange than yellow orange to it. So I just, like I said, it's got a commanding presence to it here in the gallery. Okay, this round painting was created by Evie Zimmer. It's entitled Entangled, and it's oil on canvas. And this is kind of one of her signature looks. Evie likes to incorporate organic flowers, foliage images into her compositions. And it's kind of fun just to have a different format of a painting. And actually, when you stand here and you look to the left and the right, on the wall that's a little bit behind, you've got organic shapes on the wall of the ceramic installation, and then there's another tile piece on the other side. So again, as I was designing the visual presentation and the storyline of the show, I took that into consideration about how you would see this piece in the foreground, and then it would be kind of accentuated with the theme in the back. And then it's kind of fun because she's got this swirly thing going on around the edge of the painting, and then you've got these great little swirls of the shadows that are cast from the different lights that hit the surface. Okay, this is a piece by Stephen Calhoun. He's a Cleveland Heights artist, and it is entitled Kanisa Blue Welcome. It's an iterated photograph on vinyl tapestry. And what Stephen does is he will assemble parts onto a field, and then sometimes use like a kaleidoscope filter. He'll work on how he repeats the images, and they're always such beautiful, compelling images. So I was just glad that he did have an image like this to participate in the show, because I really don't have any photography in this show, and I put it in this section as you see the next few pieces, because it kind of reminded me of water and debris, and it kind of follows through with the other pieces. And the next piece you'll see that has the ceramic, there are little pieces of metal, organic pieces that come from the center, which kind of echo the intertwined metal and the wires of the piece of the elements that he photographed for this piece. Okay, this is the only collaborative piece that is in the Big Ass Art Show. This was created by Beth Lindenberger and Donna Webb. Both of them have taught at the University of Akron, and Donna just recently retired from teaching at the University of Akron. And this is entitled Submerged, and it's porcelain and wire. And this is a variation of a piece that they were supposed to show at NCECA, which is a big clay symposium that happens every year. And the year that they were supposed to present it was COVID, so they didn't have a chance to do that. So I invited them to create a wall installation. And to me, it's just beautiful because of all the different elements and the shapes and the surfaces. And look at those shadows. Oh my God, the shadows are a gift because of the different lights hitting them. And what they liked about this when they installed the piece is that the bottom quarter, when you walk up to the pieces, you can actually look at the pieces and look down on top of the actual components and parts that are part of the installation. And it was great because, you know, when we talked about this and I said, well, you guys are going to have to install this. They were so cool and so together. They had a template with a piece of plastic, and once they figured where it was going to go, they were able to put the nails and put the pieces up. And I just think it's a beautiful wall installation, and just the way the light hits it, it's just beautiful. And like I said, between the shadows of those little sprongy things coming off, and then you've got those little circular pieces where the light is actually passing through the cutout open areas to create multi-values of the shadows. So it's like, oh my gosh, to me, this is just a spectacular installation, and I'm just so glad that, that it reads so well on the wall here. Okay, this diptych is a piece by Lisa Kenyon. People in this area are probably a little bit more familiar with Lisa's sculptures. She is a bronze sculptor, and so most of the shows that you see where she exhibits her work, you'll see the sculptures, but she's kind of has returned to doing paintings, and she just finished up a show at Stella's Art Gallery in downtown Willoughby with her and her two sisters, and this is entitled Sea Serpent, and is watercolor on Arches paper. And again, to me, it just fit perfectly in this little scenario section with Stephen's pieces with the shades of blue, and Beth and Donna's submerged pieces that look like underseas and anemone and organic pieces. And it kind of gives me the vibe of a, you know, she calls it a sea serpent, but I'm also thinking of the siren of the sea, a mermaid, and just the organic shapes, and for her to use colors like this, you know, this is an older piece for her, but it's a piece that she's always wanted to show, and she never had the opportunity or the venue to be able to show the work. Okay, this is a pastel on paper drawing by Mark Giangaspero entitled Dad. If you're a regular visitor to the gallery, you know you see Mark's work pretty much every May show. He just recently won a Jurors Award in the 13th May show that just ended in the middle of July before the Big Ass show loaded in. He just recently won a big award at the Cuyahoga Valley Art Center juried show. So he is really on a roll as far as winning these awards, and part of it, I mean, the piece is pretty spectacular, the super hyper realism, and what we're noticing as gallerists, as we talk and we look and see what jurors are picking for the big prizes in the juried shows, it seems to be a trend these days that the super hyper realism pieces are what are winning the awards, and these are pieces, you know, when I talk to people who've come to the show, and many of them, they say, oh my gosh, that drawing of the man in the motorized chair is just incredible, and they always ask the question, how does he work on that piece? What is that like? I said, well, he's probably got it in his studio, and he's on a ladder and does a section at a time, but it's just but his whole thing, Mark's whole thing is creating the portrait, and it's capturing the person's personality. And when you look at, and especially if this is his dad, and you can kind of see the connection and the love that he feels for the person who is depicted in his piece. Okay, this is almost kind of like a little preemptive piece, I don't know if that's the right word, because I'll be doing the Skull and Skeleton in Art show this year in September. And so when Judy Takis showed me images for this piece, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just such a crazy fun piece. And this is entitled, boy, I hope I don't destroy this, Hecate Vanitas with indigo, and it is oil on canvas. And Judy does like to work large scale, and I'm just so glad that the way that this whole exhibition kind of panned out is that each piece had its own wall so that you could stand back and take it all in, and just the imagery that she does. And she is one of the premier portrait and figurative painters in this area, and I just thought that, and of course having that it would be a skull and skeleton in the composition was a bonus for me. Okay, this is a art quilt, a whole cloth painting by Susan Shy. She's an artist from Worcester. And this is entitled First Lady, Queen of Paring Knives, Swords in the Kitchen Tarot. Susie has been creating these tarot pieces for quite a while now. And I wanted to include this piece, even though it was created in 2009 after Obama was elected. It's just that this is the largest piece that she has ever created, and she just wanted to wanted to show this in the exhibition. And plus the fact that she was able to revisit this piece, and she just looked at the type and all the wordage and how intricate involved it is, and she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I drew that small and it would include so much verbiage on the piece itself. You are always welcome to visit her website, which is Turtle Moon Studios, or you can Google Susan Shy, because she has very elaborate explanations behind her pieces, and a lot of times she does discuss some of the writings that are on there, and she includes the verbiage in these pieces, and she tells stories, and sometimes they're just streams of consciousness, and sometimes she talks about what's going on when she's creating the piece, what's creating those days, but she wanted to honor the First Lady, and so and then she's got the two kids, the two daughters, and then of course President Obama in this composition. And when she came to the reception that we just had on Sunday, she came up to me and she smiled. She goes, boy, I forgot how big this piece was, because she hadn't seen it in a while, and she obviously hasn't been able to view it and experience it in a piece with such high walls and plenty of space around it. And that's what I think this is making this exhibition so visually powerful, because every piece commands its own space, and you can just look at it and be absorbed and kind of taken in with all the details and all the verbiage that she's trying to convey. Okay, this next piece is a ceramic tile installation by Tom Radka, and it's entitled Calligraphic Line. Tom is an artist that I have known for decades. We used to do the Kane Park Arts Festival together. We used to carry his work at Sylvia Ullman's, and then one day, all of a sudden, I'm looking at something that he had sent to us, and he used to call his studio space Hunter Street Studio. I called him up and I said, Hunter Street Studio. I said, do you know my sister? He says, who's your sister? I said, Susan Urbis, and she was like one of his neighbors. So the fact that I was able to make that connection with him so many decades ago, and I've shown his work in my clay shows before, because again, if you've been paying attention, you know that besides doing my skull show and the women's show, curating clay shows is one of my favorite shows to exhibit. And he does large-scale installations like this. He does corporate installations. He does a lot of things in people's houses where he will do a ceramic backsplash for your kitchen. He'll surround an area in your bathroom, in your shower area, with all the different surfaces. He's done outdoor installations, and he does pieces that are rectangular or square in format, but I just thought this was kind of fun to do it a little different with a circle. And like I said, when you walk through the gallery and see how it plays out, from one of the directions you'll see Evie's circular piece, you'll see the pieces in Beth and Donna's ceramic installation, and then you'll see his. And I just love the different the surfaces that he creates, and he just recently got back to painting again, so it's kind of fun to see a clay artist have the freedom to do kind of an expressive calligraphic design on the clay tiles, fire them, and then install them onto panels so that they could be installed onto a wall. Okay, this next painting was created by Jennifer O'Mates. Jennifer is also another graduate of the Cleveland Institute of Art, and she teaches over at the Kent State campus, obviously in Kent, Ohio. And she created this piece entitled Temperamental specifically for this exhibition, and this piece is acrylic on canvas. And what I like about this is just the color field placement, and then she's got those areas with the little striations and textures of the colors, but the chroma of the color and just how that yellow is coming forward. It just creates this crazy three-dimensional space where it seems like the yellow and then the orange seems like they're so much farther closer to you on the picture plane visually than the pieces behind it. So the optical illusion and the playfulness of the color and the shapes to me was very exciting. And again, it's just so great to have large-scale pieces like this, a large-scale abstract pieces, and then to be able to give it the space it deserves, so that when you look at it, as I'm looking at it right now as we're filming this, it's like all I'm seeing is this painting. But again, if you can come in and see the work, that is always preferable to see any of the artwork in person. Okay, this next piece was created by Canton artist Steve Arrett, and it's entitled Someone's Gotta Help Me Dig, and it's acrylic, oil, ink, spray paint, and coffee on canvas. And it's kind of indicative of his kind of surrealistic style. A lot of people will recognize his work because he's a very active, prolific muralist in the Akron Canton area, and I just love the imagery and the sense of surrealism that he creates. And he's got some areas that are line work, others are painted quite three-dimensionally, and there's a freedom, you know, with the drippiness of the green paint. And to me, it's just a fun composition that includes elements of realism with more conceptual, abstract imagery. Okay, this is Cleveland artist Tom McGallis, and this is called Max Bet, and it's mixed media on canvas. Tom is this crazy Greek guy that I just met a few years ago that I just love the imagery. I love his energy. I love the colors that he creates in his compositions. If you patronize some of the Chula Indian restaurants in the area, he's been creating some wall assemblage pieces that have like bas-relief and collage pieces that come off the surface. So when I knew that he did large scale work. So with him, it was a harder question to decide on which piece I wanted to include in the exhibition. But I just love his sense of fancy, the colors, his mark making that he puts together, and it's just kind of a crazy amalgamation of things. And if you meet him, it's like he is his paintings. His paintings are him. So like I said, this is just a great piece and it fits thematically in with the pieces that are across the wall from it, which you will see as we continue with filming the video here. And it will make sense when you visit the exhibition, how some of the imagery kind of interrelates with each other. Okay, this is quite a sobering piece to witness. This was created by Barbara Martin. This is called Grapple, and this is collage and an assemblage installation. I'm just going to read her statement because I think she puts it the best. At first glance, Grapple appears to be a festive bunting suitable for afternoon tea. Instead, it's a sobering memorial to those killed by gun violence in the United States. I have included victims of so-called mass murders, those in which 4 or more people are killed. It does not include those injured, nor does it include the perpetrator. On April 20th, 1999, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold walked into Columbine High School and killed 12 students and 1 teacher before then committing suicide. The news rocked the nation. As more and more mass murders took place, I struggled to understand what was happening, and in 2019 I created Grapple as a way of memorializing the victims. Grapple is made of well over 1,500 yellow ribbons, the kind you get for an award. For hundreds of years, yellow has been the symbol of love and hope for the safe return of military personnel, those in combat, missing in action, or prisoners of war. Yellow ribbons also signify suicide awareness, significant in that many mass murderers end up taking their own lives. I researched individual shootings to try and figure out who was killed, where and when. I checked out published lists and compared notes. There's always conflicting information. Names are spelled differently, age varies, sometimes victims go unnamed. I do my best to accurately identify the victims, and I apologize in advance for any errors or omissions. And when you visit the gallery, there is a QR code that you can scan, which will explain more about the installation. So each one of these little awards has the name of the person. It has the age in which when they died. It has the date of when they were killed, and then it has the location of where that happened. And just watching her create, I've seen this piece before when it was in a smaller format, and so when I invited her to include this piece in my show, I think she said she had to add over 600 more names, and I just hope that when people see this, that maybe this will resound with them. Maybe this will help them or convince them to consider supporting bills and laws that will restrict the access to guns so that these mass murders do not continue to keep happening. Okay, this is a found object assemblage sculpture created by Akron area Gwen Waite. Gwen is probably one of the premier mixed media assemblage artists in this area. And when I was looking at images to select for this art show, and I knew that I'd be dealing with and including the piece by Barbara Martin called Grapple, I selected this piece, which is called I Don't Like Mondays. And this kind of alludes to the fact of all the shootings that have happened in the schools, and how we've taken away the innocence of these children, and how when we were growing up, yeah, there were disaster drills and tornado drills, but we never did active shooting drills. And what makes this piece even a little bit more significant is the yellow metal is actually from a school bus. This was there was debris on the road from an accident, and it had sat there for a while, and she wanted to go back to get it. She went back to get it, and it was gone, and she thought she missed the opportunity. And then a few weeks later, her husband presented it to her as a gift, because he knew that she wanted this piece, and he snagged it and he hid it for her for a while until he could present it for her, because he knew how important this piece was to this whole concept was to her, and the fact that they could incorporate a piece of a school bus, and you've got the crayons, and you've got the hooks on the side where you would hang your coats, and it's kind of hard to tell from this angle, but the chair on the right is a small student chair, and you've got the globe with the apple on top, and protruding out of the apple is a gun shell. It's not an active gun shell, and I usually don't like to promote gun violence, but this piece is about dealing with gun violence and how the children in our country, how they now have to deal with it on an everyday basis, and how parents send their children to school now knowing that there is a chance that they may not return. Hence why it's entitled I Don't Like Mondays. Okay, this drawing was created by Beth Nash. She's an artist from the Marietta area. She just recently retired from teaching down at Marietta. This is entitled Not, Knot, and it's charcoal, liquid charcoal gesso on Strathmore paper. Again, this is a little bit more casual of a presentation, but this way she was able to roll the piece up so that I could display it in the gallery. This is an artist, she's an artist I've known for decades. When I first met her, she was doing pieces on fabric and textiles. She was doing things with surface design, creating wearables, but I have always been entranced with her iconography and her painting ability and her color sense. But for this show, I just felt that these were dramatic and these were larger scale for her that she has exhibited in the past. She's pretty much an annual exhibitor in my From Woman show. She'll be giving me pieces for my Skull and Skeleton and Art show. But again, all these pieces just take on a whole new life and a whole new energy when they're on a wall by themselves, so that all you're seeing is the imagery. And what's fun about this piece, she's got the figures, she's got the dogs with the knot, playing with the knots and biting with the knots, which kind of then visually leads into the next piece, which you'll see of Doug Utters. But again, I just love the surface design, and she's got the figures and the animals and the different values of the black to gray, because most of us know her work to be very colorful and fun and kind of phantasmagorical, but I appreciate how she can collage her images to make very compelling compositions. Okay, this next piece was created by Douglas Max Utter. He's a Cleveland artist. This is entitled Fatal Collision, and it's mixed media paint on canvas. Doug does have a studio in the Midtown corridor area of Cleveland, and I chose this one because it's a little bit different than the figurative kind of dreamy atmospheric pieces that people are a little bit more familiar with. He currently has a solo show at Hedge Gallery, which is located on the second floor of the 78th Street Studio Complex on the west side of Cleveland. 78th Street Studios is where it used to be the think tank of American Greeting. So it's one of those buildings that, man, if those walls could talk, what stories they could tell. But so anyhow, so I already knew that I had selected the piece of Beth Nash's that had the dogs with the rope and all that. So when I saw this with the dogs or the coyotes or these animals, I just thought this was a little different, and it was a compelling piece. And besides the composition and the quality, the mark making and the visual impact of it, I just love how it goes from a colorful, very surreal kind of landscape into a black and white composition on the right side. And I just think that this is a compelling piece, and I was just glad that Doug had work available for my show, because he has so many pieces that are now over at his solo show, like I said, in Hedge Gallery. But again, I like the lighting and how it worked into the visual storyline that I created as I designed the show. Okay, this piece was created by Alan Mintz. Alan is also a graduate of the Cleveland Institute of Art. He and I went through the 5-year BFA program together. He is probably one of the oldest artist friends that I have in my network of friends. I met him in 7th grade when we did this exchange program with Jesu Elementary School, which was down the street from Wiley Junior High. We walked up the street, and the girls took home ec and art, and the boys took art and wood shop, and that's how I learned that you could have art every day, and that's when I met Alan. So we have been friends for decades. So this piece is entitled Wessex Blythe Court. It's acrylic mixed media on wood panel, and Alan just moved his studio, as did many, out of the Artcraft building on Superior in the Midtown area of Cleveland into the Twist building, which is, I think, at 47th and Lakeside. That Twist building now is the home to so many artists that were displaced with the selling of the Artcraft building, and other artists that wanted studio space. And actually, there's a corridor in the artists of the Twist building where it is a bunch of the Artcraft artists. But again, what I liked about his pieces are you've got the combination of the very expressive watercolor type gestural pieces with the mark making and the like calligraphy, almost caricatures. And then he also integrated some like Japanese paper, decorated papers with the surface design on it and the color field. So it's a nice contrast to have something that's black and white with color accents, because I know that I do tend to be drawn to, again, pun intended, to pieces that say a lot, that tell a story. And it's one of these pieces that the more you look, the more you see, and it's open to interpretation what the significance of some of the images are, and the calligraphic lines and the the symbols and the letters and the shapes. Okay, this final piece that we are showing you right now is a piece painted by Larry Kraus. It is entitled Window Trimmer, and it's oil on canvas. This is actually part of the Lakeland Community College Permanent Art Collection. It is located in the C stairwell where C and B come together on the main campus, and it's on the first floor. The gallery recently paid for a professional restoration artist to come and clean the piece. And we moved it from the fourth floor to the first floor of the same staircase so more people could see it. Now, the significance of this piece is that Larry was my high school art teacher. I wouldn't be standing here talking to you having been here as the gallery director for 18 years. I'm now starting my 19th year as the gallery director. He was my painting instructor for Painting 1 and Painting 2 at Cleveland Heights High School. At Heights High, he taught me how to acrylic paint. He taught me how to work in oils. He taught me about printmaking and silkscreen printing. And a student, Cleveland Institute of Art student, was a student teacher in one of his classes. That's when I learned that I was a sewer, I could make my own clothes, I could make my own fabric, I could weave my own fabric, I could print my own fabric, create wearables, and be in control of everything. So the fact that Larry's piece was in the collection when I first came to Lakeland, I felt that I was home, I was among friends, and another kind of nostalgic, crazy information is that when a bunch of us were accepted into the Cleveland Institute of Art in the summer of 1975, Joe McCullough, who was then the president of the Institute of Art, convinced Larry to come to the CIA to teach painting. And ironically, once I got to CIA, I never had him as an instructor, so I'm forever grateful that he could, that I had him on as an instructor, and how he actually was one of my mentors on my professional career as an artist. None of this would have happened had I not taken his class. I wouldn't have gone to the Art Institute. I wouldn't have walked into Sylvia Ullman's gallery and worked for her for 17 years. I wouldn't have opened my gallery in Chagrin Falls. I wouldn't have been the assistant director at the Valley Arts Center and their gallery curator before landing here in 2005. So if you people out there don't believe in Kismet or that things happen for a reason, let me tell you, they do, they did, and I am so grateful for that. So thank you so much for accompanying me on the tour today. Again, this is the Big Ass Art Show. It's on display through September 8th. 2023. Lakeland Community College is located on Route 306, just south of the I-90 and Route 306 interchange. And you can follow us on Facebook, The Gallery at Lakeland. We have 2 Facebook pages, and you can also follow The Gallery at Lakeland on Instagram, and that's where I will be posting well, obviously you're seeing this video, but that's also where I post images of the show, and I also post images of the artists with their artwork, so that you and I get to know who the artists are and what they do. The gallery is open Monday through Saturday, and Monday through Friday the hours are from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturdays we are open from 9 to 5, and we are closed on Sundays. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope that you come away being impressed by the incredible big ass work created by some incredibly talented artists from this region. So thank you again for coming along, and have a great day.